I hope everyone that's joining has something nice to drink, preferably the Secretaires Riviera that Raj selected for the wine club case from Adi, which is delicious and something I've been drinking quite a lot. Will and I, who is on with me this evening, he's going to be in charge of keeping an eye on everyone's, if anyone wants to sort of ask questions in the comments, he's going to be keeping an eye on that. But also if you want to just unmute yourself and have a chat, that is very much encouraged and sort of part of what makes these things really fun. But we have decided to treat ourselves to the ryegrass single vineyard Grenache that's also on the website, because we haven't had a chance to taste it in a while, and we thought what better opportunity than when we've got Adi. So, you know, we need to make sure we taste these things, otherwise how on earth can we suggest them, you know?
Exactly.
All right. Okay, I think if everyone's okay for us to kick off, like I said, just a bit of housekeeping. If you would like to chat at any point, please just unmute yourself and have sort of interject, or if you'd prefer just to sort of write something down in the chat, Will's going to keep an eye on that, I'm going to keep an eye on that, and we'll make sure your questions get answered. And thank you as well for sort of joining us a little bit later, and also thank you, Adi, for joining us. Adi Badenhorst.
How's it? No, Ellen, it's really nice to chat with you again, and yeah, I'm glad we could sort out the technical stuff, you know, because I'm not really good with that stuff. But this is a miracle. I'm seeing all of you, and I'm very excited just to answer any questions or tell you a little bit about the wines, anything you want to know about South African wine, or the Swartland, or, you know, the history of South Africa, anything, you know, that I can, I'll answer, you know, to the best of my ability. But yeah, it is really nice to be here and just be able to talk to you all.
And I guess speaking of the history of South Africa, because I know that you kind of, your family sort of has quite a long history in South Africa with the winemaking. It's probably a good starting point, is just to sort of talk about you and how you got to making wine in the Swartland and how you got to the farm.
Well, I got to the Swartland because I was fired from my previous job. in
Don't tell them that.
2007, I was making wine at Rustenburg Wines, and I got booted out of there. And you know, I moved back to the Swartland because my first job was actually here in the Swartland, at a place called Post, and that's where I met my very good friend Eben Sadi. But yeah, you're right. I do come from a family of farmers. My grandfather was a viticulturist, and my father, and so I grew up, you know, with you know, spending a lot of time on the farm and seeing all aspects of farming and winemaking as well. And yeah, I studied a bit after school. I went to like a pseudo academic institution, did a you know, like a 3-year diploma degree in winemaking. You know, I wasn't the brightest student. You know, I had a lot of ideas, but I wasn't the brightest. And yeah, so and we've been here on this piece of land, you know, where I'm living now with my wife and 2 kids. We've been here since 2008. We moved onto the property, and we've just been farming and making wine, you know, with those grapes. Yeah.
I remember when the first time we spoke, I thought it was amazing that you always focus more on the farming side of things than the fact that you're also a really talented winemaker. And a lot of the times when you meet winemakers, they talk so much about winemaking and not enough necessarily about the farming. And you're sort of a farmer first, if anything.
Well, you know, I only talk about farming because I assume that most people listening know more about winemaking than farming, so I just sound a lot better. But no, I mean, I do enjoy the farming aspect of it. Of course, you know, it's critical. It's the most important. You know, the wine starts with a plant, with the genetics, the diversity in the vines, and only from there where you've got that, can you even consider making wine? You know, so our business model is based on, you know, there's different models, you know, for making wine. Some people buy grapes, you know, and work closely with the farmers. Some people just buy grapes. Some people just farm and sell grapes. But we do both. You know, we farm grapes for our own wines. We also supply grapes to friends of mine, other winemakers, which is really nice, and I learn a lot from them as well. And then obviously we make wine, you know, from what we grow, and we try and grow it well, and try and make it well. You know, we haven't got the most technologically advanced winery around. You know, we spend more money on repairing our coffee machine than any other equipment in the winery.
Very important.
Yeah, you know, and we've got a very decent turntable, you know, and but we make wine very, very simply, very basically. We don't pretend to know a lot about winemaking. We've just got our ideas and a philosophy that we follow, and that's it. We try to make it very uncomplicated, you know, which is what it's not complicated.
Well, considering how easy it is for me to kill a plant, I think actually it's more complicated than you maybe give yourself credit for. But
but that's why farm grapes, they're very tough.
Yeah, they don't need a lot. They don't need too much.
I would kill anything else, you know, really.
So I guess you also quite, I'm going to share my screen in a second just to give everyone some images of Adi's farm and the vineyards. But you're also quite lucky because you have so many old vines as well. Did you want to sort of talk about how you found the farm that you're on now? Because I know it wasn't always in the sort of state that it is in now, which is
no, it wasn't. You know, and in South Africa, there's a lot of old vines.
Mm.
Old vine is any vine that's over 35 years of age. There are almost 4,000 hectares that are documented as old vines. Half of those are Chenin Blanc. You know, it's crazy. And here in the Swartland, there happen to be a lot of old vines. And the farm that we bought, you know, I was buying grapes from this area while I was working in Stellenbosch. And when I left there, you know, I fell in love with this farm. The first time I drove up this farm was up the road to the farm, was 7 years before we actually bought the farm. And I just fell in love with the area. And yeah, so we bought the farm in 2007. It was neglected, dilapidated. The winery was last used in the 1940s. And so we just fixed it up, you know, like paint and plaster, cement, and that kind of thing. And that was it. Very simple.
Again, you seem very good at keep making it sound like it's as simple as that. But
like if you fix an old building, you know, you don't go and smash it down and rebuild it. You peel away the little bits that need attention, and you fix them, and you support it. Same with vines, you know, old vines that have been neglected. You don't go in there with pruning shears like this. You don't go in there with these like this kind of thing. You're going gently, you know, and you work very carefully with these old vines, going gently. Oh, that is a very rare picture.
Yeah.
Rare picture. You know, I'm more afraid of a spade than a cobra.
I did wonder when I saw that picture whether or not you'd sort of been given it just to have something to hold.
I was just giving it to one of the real workers.
Sorry, I just was just showing my screen with everyone. So just give you an idea of what Adi's sort of farm looks like.
Yeah, so those are the old vines up in the mountains, you know. So that's a Chenin Blanc vineyard, and that vineyard is called Dassie Kop. You see, it's got this terraces going into the Paardeberg Mountain. Absolutely stunning vineyard. And the vineyard in the foreground is a very, very old vineyard planted in 1957. But that where the tractors are standing, that is Dassie Kop. It's a magnificent vineyard. You know, when you walk in there, you know, I had a Frenchman that came with me there once, a very good friend of mine, a guy called Vincent Carême, and he started crying when he was up in that vineyard. He got so emotional. And you know, that wine always smells of buchu and fynbos. Fynbos is, you know, the French have got a term called garrigue. You know, that the smell of the natural vegetation. The wine coming from there, it just smells of this buchu and fynbos, which is amazing. And it's a wine that's got texture and weight. And we don't make wines that are like acidic and lean. And you know, the Swartland is not about that. You know, it's Mediterranean climate. The wine's about ripeness and texture. Really good flavors, really nice length. But because they're on granites, and you can see the mountains there, there's just granite rocks, man. And that mountain range, when it rains in winter, it just soaks up all this water. And then it's like a sponge, and it slowly releases it through the growing season. So the vines can survive. I'm not saying they flourish, but they survive. It's a very special vineyard, that.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can gather, I've sadly never been able to visit you, but everything that I've sort of seen, like go back here, like it's just this really beautiful paradise. And
yeah, so this is probably this was taken last year, and it'll probably be about end of July, beginning of August. That's what it looks like. You can see, you can't see the vines, that's cover crops of herbs and cereals and all kinds of stuff in between. The vines are there somewhere. You know, the lighter lines are the vines. You know, that's where this yellow flower grows, called ramnas, and it's like a wild mustard. And that's a plant that dies back in the summer, but it's quite troublesome when pruning, you know, because it grows amongst the vines. So it takes a long time to prune these poor things, you know, because the stuff is growing up amongst them. But I mean, it's how it is. We don't like to use herbicides and stuff like that.
I think that the concept of cover crops is something that crops up a lot. Sorry, pun. That was not a deliberate pun. God, I didn't even realize I did that. But it crops up a lot. Do you want to explain the importance of using cover crops and why that's helpful for the vines?
Look, I mean, vines are such a terrible crop. It's like a monoculture. It's like horrible when I go to a place and I just see vines and nothing amongst them, nothing between them. So we plant cover crops. We plant a mixture of cereals, different, what I mean is like, I don't know, I think the English word is triticale. We plant wheat. We plant various kind of oats, a couple of peas, vetch, a little bit of clover, mustards and radishes. We plant that kind of stuff just for a bit of diversity, look, I mean, guys, I said breaks up the soil and this, but we've got quite sandy soils, the granite. So we haven't really got many issues with compaction or drainage. It just covers the soil completely, so you don't get the sun beating directly down on the soil and heating it up and destroying microbes, because the microbes all live in that top few centimeters of the soil. So I like to keep it covered. It helps a little bit with moisture retention. Sorry, I'm gonna just have another sip.
That's okay. It's making me thirsty as well, I think.
Moisture retention. So yeah, that's it.
It's funny though, because I feel like a lot of the times when I mean, anyone feel free to interject as well if you have questions, but that normally when you sort of look at vineyards sort of outside of growing season, it's just sort of like this almost like barren vines with sort of no fruit or anything on them, and it's just sort of like bare ground, and it's really beautiful to see, because this is your winter as well. So July, August is more your winter time. Is that correct?
So we're moving into winter now, May, June. This is what, we sowed our cover crops last month. So that's a little bush vine that's waking up. That's probably around about, first or second week in September. I don't know. Maybe there's a date on the pictures. I don't know. But you can see how the grasses in the middle, that the mustards are dying back, whereas the wheat and the cover crops on the left are still growing. So what we'll do is we'll roll those flat, just with a big roller, roll it flat. So we won't plow it in or anything, just roll it flat, and it forms this amazing mulch or carpet between the vines. You need to roll it flat if you want to work and you want to spray and stuff. You can't spray with a big thing like that.
One of our guests, Mark, is talking about how green it looks, and he was wondering how rain, so you could get affected when there's very lack of rain and there's drought. How does that sort of affect the growing season, especially maybe even out of season when you kind of need the cover crops to be able to?
No, look, it's so the time of the year when the cover crops grow is winter. Okay, so we get around about 500 mils of rain a year, which is not a lot, huh? Not a lot. I mean, Stellenbosch should get 1,000 mils, Constantia 2,000 mils a year. So we're on the lower side of rainfall, but and most of our rainfall is in winter. We get about 20% of our rainfall during the growing season. So the growing season is, from spring, from anything from end of August up until March, 20% of that rain. The rest of it is in the winter when the cover crops are growing. So there's no issue of moisture stress there. However, if you leave the cover crops too long after flowering, they do draw up a lot of moisture out of the ground. So that's why we like to roll them flat to break the I don't know what the English word is, the stems, stalks of the roll them flat so they don't draw up any moisture, but they seal off what's in the ground. That's the idea.
And I've also got a picture of this guy. Very important.
No. So his name is Jan. He's got a friend called Bastian, another Persian. But we're just training him. We're never going to use him in the vineyards because we don't plow our vineyards at all.
Okay.
It's not the point. But if you see behind him where the blue gums are, on the ridge there's some bushes there. That's rooibos tea and some other crops up there, rooibos tea and capers. So Jan will work amongst those, not in the vineyards. It's look, I mean, I get like a cramp every time I see like a biodynamic grow with a horse in the vineyard and like cameras going mad. We don't like to work our soils like that. We work our soils once a year. We roll them, that's fine, but we never break this. We break it once a year just before we sow a cover crop, and that's it. The rest of the year we don't touch our soils. There's no need to. Everything is in the top. We don't want to disturb it at all. When I see these guys plowing up and down with horses and crisscross, and the vines look all clean and neat, I get the fucking horries. No, it's just terrible. You just I don't know, aerating the soil. I don't know what the hell that means. Aerating the soil. What a lot of rubbish, man.
Definitely seems like it doesn't really work for you out.
Doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I'm just going to show you guys a map to show you where Adi is as well, because I feel like the sort of South African wine growing area is quite big. So here's sort of the main South African wine maps. If we kind of go in on the Swartland, if you see Paarl and Malmesbury, this is where Adi is. So you've got the Paarl Mountains in the sort of foreground, and it's just sort of between Paarl and Malmesbury. How, like, the mountain, that must affect you guys sort of in terms of the climate. Is that quite accurate to say, or is it sort of just a positive element?
It affects us like spiritually.
Yeah.
No. Look, I mean, the mountain where we are it's got a major effect, man, because our farm is so it's on the northern side of the mountain. And the farm is in a natural sort of amphitheater that faces sort of east. So, the sun rises over the farm, but there we've got north and south facing slopes as well, and a bit of altitude. So it's a farm that's got a lot of texture because it's on a mountain. It's got some elevation and it's got some hills and all different kinds of nooks and crannies. So the geology of the mountain is important, but the soils are all granites, but just then they vary in their depth and their decomposition, these granite soils. And look, I mean, I know nothing about soils except that like granite and grapes gives you freshness, Fuck, that's the only mathematics I can do.
Hey, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, you can taste what you find at the end of it. And I know that's something that I've always found in your wines, is they have this amazing freshness. It's a very warm climate, and getting freshness in wine is not necessarily an easy thing to do when you've got a lot of heat. So it's always such a wonderful thing that sort of sets your wines apart from other sort of South African wines that I've tasted. Though
also, we like this red blend, this here, it's important. This wine is a blend of many different vineyards, so we don't. What makes it quite different, a lot of people do blends, and probably picking much better blends than ours. But what what makes this wine a little bit different is that the vineyards, and there's 7 of them, and there's 5 or 6 varietals, they all pick together at the same time, and they fermented together. So when you do that, you're picking stuff that some grapes are a little bit riper and some that aren't as ripe. So you get, but we try and look at alcohols of 13.5, 13.81 is like no, I'm talking shit, but I mean, between 13.5 and 14 is a really nice ripeness for us. A little more than that, the wine becomes quite overpowering, and you taste a little bit of alcohol. But when you do that and you make a blend like that, you do sort of get that freshness from the earlier grapes with a bit of ripeness. But most importantly, you don't get any varietal character. You move completely away from varietal notes, and you've just got a wine, like a wine, a red wine, and a wine from a farm.
And we have the so that's the family red that you're talking about there, isn't it? Which we have on the sourcing table. And I remember when I spoke to you about that before, the thing that really kind of clicked for me was that you were saying how because you sort of don't pick necessarily when everything is varietally ripe, you sort of pick at the right time for you. It's like a snapshot of the Swartland. Like it's the wine is not necessarily like a red blend, like you just said. It's like a real snapshot of that vintage and the Swartland at that point in time. Would you say that's, if I got the right end of the stick there?
No, for sure. Because we when we first started out, we had and before our own vineyards were up to scratch, we played around a bit, and picking different grapes and making just a blend of 2 or 3 varietals and then blending it with another portion. But now, I don't know, now we just pick everything together just to make one decision, one decision. And in the winery, it's myself and Hanneke. I don't know if you've met Hanneke.
No, I haven't met them before. No.
Yeah, she's my assistant. She also makes her own wine called PH. And so we got a small cellar team, small people in the cellar, and the grapes come in. We make one decision when to pick. Everything goes into the tanks as a blend. The other major decision is when to draw off the juice and when to press, and then the next one is when to bottle. So you're making far fewer decisions, far greater chance for mistakes probably, but far more chance of making just like the wine you intend to make. Authentic thing, just one simple, pick everything together. Same with our white blend. We do the same. We actually do 2 picks there, but some of the vineyards are young vineyards are much earlier, but also a blend of everything. And the older, so we do 2 picks on the white, but they're blended together as soon as they finish fermenting.
And we have the 2018 of the white and the 2018 of the red on the website. How was that as a vintage for you? Was that one? It's quite bad drought in 2018.
So 2017. Remember we spoke about.
Sorry.
So when you talk about 2018, we actually talk about the summer of 2017 and the winter of 2017. We didn't have a lot of rain in the winter of 2017, so we started off the growing season. The vines didn't have the same vuma, but it was a nice cold winter, so they budded evenly. But we didn't have much moisture, so they started stressing quite early on. We had quite a lot of heat in the last week of October, November, big heat waves. Normally, if there's enough moisture in the soil, the vines sort of shrug it off, and that sort of toughens them up a bit. But so it was a very, very difficult vintage. We had to pick. We had to be careful and quite focused on when to pick and when to bring the grapes in. But I'm very happy with the 2018 wines. So they spent 2 years with us in the winery before they released. And the 2018 red, I think, is drinking beautifully. The white is still showing a little bit of restraint, a little bit of nervousness on the palate, but I know how well that wine ages, so I'm quite confident about that. And following up 19 was a completely different vintage. There was a lot of moisture, really good growth, big crop. The wines with far more fruit, wines that are far more forward, far more expressive. Yeah,
And
so
that's
there's nice vintage variations. So
That's
you've got the
the vintage from the ryegrass. So the ryegrass 2019, which we also have, and Will and I have treated ourselves to this evening, is obviously, like you say, a very different vintage.
Yeah, look, I mean, the ryegrass is one of the really amazing vineyards. It's the oldest Grenache vineyard in South Africa, and it's only like 1,249 vines. So it's very, very small vineyard, light in color, but still nice perfume. But when you taste it, it's got this amazing, and that's one of the wines that we sort of destem about 80% of it. The rest of the wines is maybe 70% of whole bunches, but with the Grenache we destem most of it. And when you taste that, it's got this incredible tannin. This tannin is just, to me, just screams of the site, of the granite, of the coarseness of the granite, and the tightness of that fruit, and just the ageability of this wine as well.
Yeah, it's been a real joy to taste it this evening, because we popped in a decanter and gave it a bit of time, and it's, I definitely encourage people to give it a go, because it just takes you on this beautiful journey. It's such a
no, Ellen, that wine needs a lot of time. I've just bottled the 2020 Ryegrass. I bottled that in February, and I tasted the other night. I was like, geez, what is this? This is just, the wine is so tight and so close that I'm just going to put it away for another 5 years. But the only problem with that is that, I have to sell it, and it's now that it's like, really, people are gonna go like and say like, this guy is so full of shit, because like this wine is just not giving us anything, whereas I know how it'll age,
Yeah, you can see into the future. You can see where it's going to go. For what it's worth, the 2019 is tasting really beautiful, but don't expect anything less these days when I come to taste your wines. Speaking of wines and winemaking, you sort of touched on it earlier, but Bridget's asked, so you said you have an assistant winemaker. Is that something have you had an assistant winemaker for a long time?
No, I've always look, when we started here, I had a guy called Jasper Wickens, who's making Swartland wines now. So Jasper and I worked together for 10 years. Amazing. I mean, he's like a son to me. And he's now moved on. He's making his own wine just up the valley. And Hanneke started working for me just by chance. I was doing a project in Italy, a little winery in Abruzzo, and she is the wife of a friend of mine. Well, at that stage, she was still a girlfriend, and I met her around a bar, and we got chatting. I said, listen, what are you doing? She's between jobs, winemaking jobs, and I said, listen, man, don't you want to come and help me in Italy? So she said, yeah, sure. And so she came back, and after that, I said, listen, what are you doing? I don't know. So she just helped in the winery as well, and now she's working here permanently, and she's amazing. Just like, I'm very slack with admin and stuff. My main decisions, like in the winemaking, is like is the farming, and then the picking dates. But because we understand each other, I don't know, it just works so well. There's a really amazing thing in amazing sort of working relationship and spirit in the winery. So it's, she makes the wine, I don't know, it doesn't really we don't we talk about we never talk about I or you or whatever. It's a collective thing. Winemaking is not just a winemaker, that's complete bullshit. You'll never hear like myself saying like, I make the wine. It's like, it's a we. It's from the people that pick, that prune, the sorting of the grape, everything. It's a collective. So yeah, we don't like the word winemaker, but yeah, we do ferment grapes in the winery.
You do. And then you put them in a bottle, and then you ship them over to the UK, and then we get to drink them, which is pretty nice.
We try and do that. Yeah, and it's amazing, it's always like a weird thing for us, when people taste our wines overseas, and because we like farm, it's like just grapes, man. It's just grape. It's just grape juice, and it's in a bottle, but it's nice, and it gives us a lot of satisfaction that that not only we enjoy the wines, that other people also like the wines.
Well, yeah, it's the
Something
thing
like
we
that.
love most about them is drinking them. After all,
Oh,
we obviously, it's so wonderful to be able to talk to you, and it's always wonderful to talk to winemakers and talk about wine and sort of make it into our lives and be so excited by it. But when you boil it down, and something I had to remind myself a lot of when I worked in restaurants as a sommelier is, like, at the end of the day, the main reason people want to drink wine is because they want to enjoy it. It's a pleasurable thing, it's an enjoyable thing, and it's really important to have
yeah.
wines that you enjoy drinking.
No, of course. I mean, I had a lot of my friends over this weekend, 7 other guys, all winemakers, Miles Mossop, Sebastian Bowman, like 7 of us here. And oh man, we drank hundreds of wines, honestly. We drank like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was amazing. And wines bring people together as well, and that's a beauty. And generally, thank goodness, most people that like wine like food as well. And shit, they're actually nice people, You get very few assholes like making wine, or farming, which is nice.
And I think that people who are successful is usually, like, I don't know, I'm a simple person. I like to buy wines that are made by people I'd want to drink them with. And I feel like that's very much the mentality of most people. So if you're not a nice person, no one's going to want your wines anyway. So
Now, I find it really difficult to drink the wine like made by an asshole. It's really, really difficult for me. Doesn't matter how good the wine is. It's very, very tricky.
let it be known that on the sourcing table, we only sell wines made by really nice people.
Yeah,
Because we wouldn't
there you
drink otherwise.
it's a very good philosophy.
Um, and Rob Parsmall's just asked a question, which I'll mention in a sec, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about, because Adi, you've got like an amazing network of people that you work with in the Swartland, like incredible winemakers and people
Yes,
whose fruit you work with, and who's work with your fruit and vice versa.
yeah.
I wanted to ask sort of like how that sort of came about, because I know you almost have like a collective now, is that right?
Yeah, so we've got an organization called the Swartland Independent Producers, and these are producers like myself, Jasper Wickens, Ibn Sadi, Tinit, all producers in the Swartland. And we come together regularly. It was an offshoot of the Swartland Revolution and Swartland Independent, but basically we just decided how wine should be made and what varieties should be planted, and that kind of thing. So and there's amazing dialogue. Fucking the people really get on well, and they chat nicely. There's amazing openness. We get together regularly, taste each other's wines. It's a producers forum, not a marketing thing as such. And I think that's the important thing, is that we all realize, we're all different, we're all individuals. The wines that we produce are all different. We've got different ways of farming, perhaps, but when we sit around the table and taste our wines, there are so many similarities.
Mm.
And the key one is a passion for vines, a passion for wine, and a respect for each other. Those are the most important. Those are the sort of pillars that this organization is built upon.
And I think that the wines, so we obviously very lucky, we also work with Johan Mayer quite a bit, who's
Yeah,
the part of the group, and big fan of Evan Sadi, and these are some incredible wines and incredible sort of winemakers and producers that year on year just seem to get better and better. So it's amazing to know that you all kind of get together and crack open bottles and share ideas. And
we often do, and we had a tasting a couple of weeks ago, just like amazing wines from New Zealand, and next week I've just got a whole lot of wine shipped over here from Portugal. I haven't even opened them now, and we're going to taste those, and it's just so nice. It's a really like I don't know, proper not a collaboration, but just a real understanding and an empathetic kind of organization.
I guess you're all part of a community as well, aren't you? So
of course we are.
Like a common goal that everyone has at the end of it.
Certainly.
So Rob's actually asked a question about how you and the other Swartland wineries have come out of the South African alcohol ban, and are we in the clear, or is the damage continuing? How's that sort of been going? Because I know it's kind of happened, and the ban happened, and then it was off, and then it was on again. And
yeah, the ban was terrible, because the wine industry, it's called a sin industry, tobacco and booze. It's classified as, when they increase the taxes, they call them sin taxes. But the wine industry supports so many people here in the Western Cape. It's the second largest provider of jobs for anybody in the Western Cape. There's millions of people dependent on the wine industry. So obviously when and I'm talking not only about people working on the vineyards, but obviously restaurateurs and et cetera, staff working in restaurants. So when the first lockdown happened, I mean, it came as a bit of a shock to everybody. We couldn't export. That was also stopped. Eventually exports opened. So that was a slight sort of a little bit of a breather for us. We could export a little bit of wine, but local sales were locked down. And, when I look at my sales figures now from last year, it's like in months, it's just zero, where I've sold like 3 cases. I don't know even how I sold those 3 cases, but you weren't allowed to, but there's just been zero income in those couple of months. But, we do like to, when we, farm and stuff, you always keep a little bit of cash aside, for times like this. So, luckily we didn't have to cut any salaries to get rid of anybody. In fact, what we did was we sealed off the whole farm, and we've got a lot of guest houses here, and we moved all the staff that lived in town onto the farm and closed the gates. So we had this really closed community living on the farm for a couple of months, and it was amazing. We got a lot done. We had to carry on working, because when you farm, you have to farm, lockdown or not. And we just carried on farming, and the wine was in the winery. But as soon as things opened, we could sell again. But we were quite fortunate, because we've been selling wine, say, for like 10 or 12 years. So people sort of like know our wines, and so when things opened again, they would buy the wines again. But it was really hard for guys that just started out, like that were just building a brand. So if you're off the market for 3 or 4 months, guys like forget about you. So that's like rebuilding for guys like that. So really demoralizing for a lot of the guys that started out, the very small producers. But luckily for us, we've got a lot of vineyards. We had to carry on farming, and our wine, our wine's not expensive. So majority of wine, which is secateurs, it's really affordable. So that was a nice thing to have. If I had really expensive wines, and I tried to sell them after like things that opened up, I think it would have been very, very difficult. Just people just didn't have the money to buy. But luckily we've got secateurs and that kind of thing. So people bought those wines, but there's still a lot of wine left in wineries. Full tanks from last year.
On the topic of secateurs, just because Bridget Anderson's asked a question. We've had some really great questions coming through, actually, so I'm going to sort of start working through those. So
I see Bridget asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, she's got some great questions, but also because we can move on to talking about the secateurs Riviera as well.
Okay.
Because I know when we spoke about this before, we talked about sort of skin contact wines, orange wines, kind of thing. So Bridget, your question is perfect segue for everything we want to talk about next. So Bridget was saying, is it helpful to have the secateurs Riviera marketed in the orange category? Do you think that's a trend? Is it understood, or is it better to maybe talk about it as, white wine with skin contact, and this trend of orange wine, maybe is it as helpful as we would hope? Like, what do you think about that? And I think the story of how secateurs came to be is quite fun as well. So
I don't know, Ellen, when we've always when we make the secateur Shannon, it's always like 10 to 12% of that blend is so-called orange wine, or I don't know what you call it, amber wine or whatever it is. And so one year, my Canadian agent came and tasted with us, and he tasted some of the the carbonic and the skin fermented stuff that was in cask that was going to be blended into the secateurs. And he said, please, can't we bottle some for him? So I said, shit, we don't normally, it's a component of the, so we bottled him a little bit. And so the next year ordered some more. And so that's how the Riviera, and we've always called it Riviera because it's a vineyard near and the bottom end of the farm, and separating the vineyards is like this furrow. It's like a dry furrow. Like only when it's serious, like a trench. Only when it seriously rains does there water go there. But we call it the river. We call it the rivier block.
The South African Riviera.
Yeah, but then so we started writing on the barrels Riviera because it sounded really fancy, like exotic. So that's how Riviera got its name. It's just from this dry trench, like separating the two vineyards. And so we've made more of it, and I don't know. I mean, I really like the wine. I think it's delicious. I love a lot of orange wines or skin contact wines. I really do. Some I like less, but I think they're really, really interesting. Whether I don't know the trend or the whatever, but I mean, I just like some of them. I don't like all of them. But I think it makes interesting wine. That's the main thing. As long as it's an interesting wine and it's well made, and that it's and it's not ultra funky. It's hopefully stable. If it's still stable, I don't know.
My experience tasting it quite recently, yes, it's definitely still stable. You haven't accidentally made a pet nat. You're all good.
You like that kind of thing. But I mean, so, but all our other wines, none of our other wines are filtered, except some of the secateurs, Shannon and the Rosé. But all the other wines are unfiltered, but they're never classified as natural. And we farm all the grapes ourselves, so I don't know what the meaning of it is exactly. Maybe it's got to do with sulfur levels or.
Yeah, I think the orange wine, I mean, for me personally, sort of working in sort of wine retail and we do get emails and sort of phone calls from people asking us about orange wine. And, it's definitely, as Bridget said, it's definitely a trend, and it's definitely a trend that's kind of hitting its stride at the moment. I mean, I've worked in the wine industry in London for nearly 7 years. And I can remember when I first started in the trade, it was far less understood than it is now. Like, it's definitely been a sort of a gradual build, but now it's super popular. And we get people asking about it all the time, but it's so extreme. There's some sort of amazing examples and some less amazing examples, but it's any kind of wine.
But Ellen, I think in the UK you're quite spoiled for choice. Just
100%, yeah.
In terms of what you can get, but it's very important to remember that in some countries where there's not this big choice, then there's a smaller fanatical wine drinking community. A lot of their first wines, their reference points are wines like this that they taste in these cool wine bars. So, for example, the Riviera Shannon would be their reference to like a normal wine, and anything outside of that would think, geez, that tastes like a Chablis. You think, gee, this stuff. Why is it so clean? Why is it so boring? Where and I think it's important to remember that there's this whole community of people that are drinking wine for the first time, and thank goodness they're drinking wine and they're not drinking beer and other crap, but they're drinking wine, and they're drinking wine because it's interesting, okay, but they like that flavor as a reference point, but they're also drinking it because they're voting with their dollars, their kronas, or whatever it is. They're voting because they believe that the wine is made in an ethical way, that it's better for the earth, these wines. So I think it's fantastic that people are making these wines, whether you like them or not, or it's irrelevant completely. The most important thing is that these wines are here and they're here to stay, I think. And we need to understand them. When we first made these wines, I mean, I made a lot of stuff under floor. We experimented with the floor early on, and a lot of these wines are very difficult to get through our wine and spirits board because there wasn't a category for these wines. For the traditional, we've got like a tasting panel that approves all our wines before we can export them. That's how it works in South Africa. So
Little side label comes
where you get that seal from, and so we had to create a category for this wine, and we had to create a category for say, for example, white wines, long aging under floor, because they weren't in the reference or the framework of the people tasting the wines. We had to say to the guys, listen, man, this is a style. This is the one. These are the parameters and analytically that the wine should sort of fit into. We don't want anything that's like madly volatile or completely bacterial. That's, as you open the, the cork shoots out by itself, that kind of animals crawl out of the bottle. Created these categories to be able to sell these wines. A lot of Stompie's wines go through Jasper's wines, Craig Hawkins, all these guys, so it's an alternative wine. So it's fantastic. It's now a recognized category, like legislatively in South Africa. With the rest of the world, I mean, it's become a trend, and it's here to stay, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I love drinking orange wine as well. And one of the things that we love about the secateurs on the sourcing table, and you'll probably see me mention it from time to time a lot because I just really love this wine, is I think the orange wine category can get quite extreme. And I love those wines. Like I love Bravner and Radicon and all these like really rich amber wines. But a lot of the time, that's not where you want to start off that journey. And the Secateurs Riviera, which is a skin contact wine, but it's not extreme. It's quite sort of gently easing you in. It's a really great introduction to that category. It's not very expensive. It's very delicious. It's, really, it's an exciting wine, and we absolutely love it. And it's a nice way for people to sort of dip their toes in and then go on this adventure. And if they decide it's not for them, that's fine. You can just reel it back.
No, but that's exactly how I describe it. I mean, if you come to a new village or new town and you want to meet friends, okay, how it works here in South Africa is you want to meet new people, you go to the municipal swimming pool on like a Saturday or a Sunday. Everybody's there, so if you want to meet new people, you go there, but you don't, for the first time, you don't climb up, go to the highest diving board, whip off your kit and do a triple somersault down there in your Speedo. You don't do that. What you do is you grab an ice cream, you go sit in the shallow end where the children are sitting, and you're like, I don't know, let the ice cream melt amongst your fingers while you watch people, and you go in really gently. And so the Riviera is like that. It's not full on. It's not radical. It's just it's proper wine made in that style, and it does bridge the gap, I think, quite nicely between the two styles or the two philosophies, or I don't know, whatever you want to call. My English is failing me now.
No, but it's a nice jump between white to skin contact, white to orange, that kind of thing. It's really good bridge builder. Yeah,
that's it. Feet, toes in the water, ice cream in the hand.
Yeah. Somersaults later. So Phil's asked a couple of really great questions, actually. He says, what's the future looking like for South African old vines?
What's the future looking like?
Yeah.
No, it's looking grimmer.
Oh, no.
It's looking grim. I tell you why it's looking grim is because of the restrictions on sales, and the pressure this is brought on producers. I just look in my own area. I mean, I'm not talking about Stellenbosch or Worcester or Tilbach or Constantia, those areas. I'm just talking about the Swartland, and I'm looking really close to home and looking at my neighbors. And we're going to see a huge uprooting of vines in the next couple of years. We're going to lose thousands and thousands of hectares of vines, and amongst them are going to be old bush vines that are low yields, that or maybe very good quality, but that aren't bought by people that can sell them, that can pay the farmer enough to keep them. So Ellen, we're farming at the moment like 75 hectares of bush vines. Okay, it's a lot, and we're just looking at the pricing on the grapes we sell. We have to sell them for a lot of money to make, not to make money, but to cover costs. So most of the farmers in South Africa their margins are so tiny, and on old bush vines and old vines, they're generally in the red. So we're going to lose a lot of vines in the next couple of years. So the future For the old vines, it's grim, but for those that have got old vine vineyards and that are looking after them, and they've got a purpose, and they've got they end up in a bottle under a label, they are going to be amazing. We're very fortunate that we've got these incredible old vines, and a lot of them are very well farmed and looked after and given the right attention.
And I guess it's quite a good sort of second question from Phil, is also asking, over the period you've been in Swartland, have you seen much impact of climate change as well, and how that's affecting things?
To be honest, I feel farmers have got like very short memories. So, last week when it was raining, last month we had, 110 mils of rain here. Every single farmer here forgot where they were. Fucking, they clean forgot where they were. They forgot about the last 4 or 5 years of really unfamiliar weather patterns. But yeah, they are gonna, as I said, I think I mentioned it earlier. If the big change to us climatically is if we're gonna lose that little bit of precipitation that we normally get in the summer months, if that decreases by 10%, then we're going to seriously see a huge impact on yields and viability. There's already, just being a grape farmer and a winemaker in these times, there's already so many other pressures. Then the climate comes along as well. And it's so we are just farming to try and curb that. That's why we're planting these cover crops and leaving them thick. We're not tilling our soils. We are, when we do fungal sprays, we are adding also micronutrients to the sprays, organic stuff that's taken up by the leaves, just to encourage a bit of leaf cover and growth, because we know that if the leaves don't grow, there's not enough canopy, you get a lot of burnt bunches and sun on the bunches. So it's a balancing act at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen. We've had a last year or two of really normal rainfall. Last year was really fantastic rainfall. This year is looking very, very promising. But we don't know, but we are aware of it. Very, very much aware of it. We're planting, obviously we're looking at new varietals that we can plant and things that may be more suited to here. I mean, a lot of the names are unpronounceable. If we can't pronounce them, we just call them Cinso. But we are planting a lot of different grapes as well.
Well, I was going to say I remember sort of, so for those who don't know, a friend of mine has worked in South Africa and knows Adi, and she mentioned that you're sort of planting lots of different things. And I know you've been interested in sort of Portuguese varieties as well.
I love the Portuguese.
Yeah.
I love the Portuguese. They don't kill the bull, Goes into the, they give it a few slaps and then they let the bull, they don't kill the bull, So very different to the Spanish and the French. So I really like the Portuguese varieties. They really do well here. Traditionally here in the Swartland, Tinta Barroca has been amazing. It's been a really amazing grape. It's like the Counoise of the Swartland in our blends. Counoise is that peppery, spicy, acidic, like a little bit tart, like a freshness to the wine. And Tinta Barroca does that here in the Swartland for us. So we've planted many more Portuguese varieties here as well, because I think they're well suited, the bigger berried varieties. Cabernet, Merlot, those kind of things don't do well here. So we're planting stuff like Bastardo, Baga. We're looking at bringing in some like Remisco. I mean, it can be amazing just having some Remisco. I mean, if you taste those wines from Colares, you taste those old vintages, they are incredible, So yeah, we're looking at a lot of Portuguese stuff, and maybe also stuff from southern Italy. I mean, I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff, Malvasias I love, but there's 10 different. Which one do you bloody well plant? There's and amazing stuff from the Canary Islands. I mean, the stuff you won't find it in any nurseries. I don't know. So we're playing around a bit, you know, with that kind of thing. But it's like an ongoing, it's a real ongoing process, you know.
I guess as well, because you have such an amazing sort of microclimate and sort of wonderful farm, and you can kind of experiment because you've got the land to do it. And I think a lot of times, sort of looking at the way some winemakers have planted, it's almost like putting a round peg in a square hole, because it's something, you know, just because something's popular doesn't mean it necessarily works in your environment. So it's really exciting to see you working with all these varieties that work really well in warm climates as well.
Yeah. Look, I mean, Ellen, like basically what we're trying to do is, you know, look, in 10 years' time, I'm making, you know, we're working with these amazing old vineyards, you know, like with these Grenaches and these Cinsaults. So we're making like really interesting wines from single vineyards. But our real focus now is to make one wine, you know. We get towards making one wine from all the vineyards on the farm, and that'll be a blend of, you know, maybe 20 or 30 different varietals, sort of 65% red, 35% white. So every single vineyard will go into this wine, and that is our focus. It's going to be in the next 10 years, because when my children take over and my son and daughter get involved, hopefully, if, you know, then all they have to do is focus on one wine, and then they can rediscover the single vineyards and bottle them on their own again. You know, I don't want to leave like 20 or 30 dodgy wines for you know, for children for my kids to take over, you know.
Yeah, let them do their own thing with it.
Like they'll if they want to farm or they want to be involved, you know, they get one wine and they carry on. And you know, every year I make a lot of fortifieds. I don't know if you know that, but we make a lot of fortifieds every year, thousands of liters of port and sherry style wines, and I don't know what you call them, jerepiga. Do you call it jerepiga? Like hanaput, like a sweet hanaput, a sweet muscat.
Like a Muscat of Alexandria kind of thing.
Yeah, like Muscat Alexandria. That's just fortify the juice. Make a lot of those every year, you know, and thousands of liters. We haven't sold a bottle since we started in 2009. So my accountant is very nervous. My accountant is very conservative, and but I'm still trying to explain to him the value of not selling this stuff.
Yeah, let it age. Yeah,
so you know, I like doing those kind of things, buggering around with that kind of stuff as well.
Well, it's all things we should hopefully get to try sometime soon. Hopefully,
you'll have to come and drink it here. You know, I don't think I'll
sourcing table wine club trip to South Africa.
No, it'll be amazing. You know, you actually, as soon as things open up, you should all book tickets to here. I mean, this is the land of milk and honey. It's amazing. It's just, any time of the year, the Swartland is really majestic, and it really speaks to you, this place. You know, it's you're really close to the seasons. The people are amazing. I mean, I've got guys working here from many different cultural backgrounds every day. You know, guys from all over Africa working here, and you know, just to have this, when you start work in the morning, everybody works all these different accents and languages, but then we speak one language, and that's English, and then we carry on working. You know, it's amazing that, you know, in this kind of environment.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. Very much looking forward to that being able to be an option in the future. Bridget's also asked a great question that I'd love to know the answer to as well, which is your preferred wine of the ones that you make or have made?
Did Bridget ask that question?
Yeah, Bridget's got the best questions.
The wine I like.
Yeah, what's your favorite? Ask you who your favorite child is.
No, it's not. It's not. You know what I think for me is the red blend, you know, the Kalmoesfontein red, the family red.
Yeah, the family red that we've got, yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, the white is similar blends from many vineyards, same as the Secretaire Chenin from many vineyards. The Secretaire red is from different vineyards, all picked together. But what makes the family red slightly different from those is that these are really amazing, very old vines. The oldest Grenache in South Africa. You know, the Cinsaults are very old. The Tinta Barocca vineyard is incredible. Tinta Barocca vineyard. I mean, I'm in love with this vineyard, and the Shiraz up in the mountains. So, you know, working with these is really rewarding, and it's so nice when you pick, you know, these 7, 8 different vineyards together and these 5 different varietals over a couple of days, and you end up in the tank and you can see, like, you don't really know what it tastes like yet. The juice is good, you know, the color is light, but you know that when you just taste the juice, there's a good balance. There's a good sugar and there's a nice acidity. Yeah, that is so nice at that part. Obviously, you know, the wine after that, the wine is nice normally, you know. It comes together, and you know, but that first part is for me the best. Organizing that, it's like a military operation, you know, organizing to pick and into the cellar, because once it's in the cellar, it's like we don't really do anything fancy. It's just that decision to pick that keeps me up a few nights, you know, before the time, you know.
Well, because once you start picking, you kind of can't stop, can you?
Yeah, a lot of people get harvest fever.
Is that kind of like cold feet?
No, harvest fever is when you pick a vineyard and you just don't freaking stop, and you pick everything too green, and you pick everything too green. You know, you know, with these vineyards, you know, we always used to pick them too ripe. You know, you taste for things you don't want in the grapes. When you pick Chenin, you taste the grapes and think, oh, it's like amazing. You know, so like delicious flavors. You know, you like go like, but then when you pick it, it's already too ripe. You know, so Chenin, I've learned, like, you must pick it before it really tastes great. If it really tastes great, the alcohol is 14.5, you know. If the wine is great, but shit, you know, you can't drink a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, like I
And,
say, the wines always have freshness about them, which makes it so much more.
we never pick on a Friday, Ellen. That's thinking that's a golden rule, because we don't want to work too hard over the weekends, you know.
I mean, that's quite a good motto for life, not to work too hard
Yeah,
on Friday as well, isn't
not
it?
pick on a Monday, because that's a recovery day.
Yeah. Oh.
You know, you'll get people, you know, winemakers that work with Bordeaux varietals. They're very focused on physiological ripeness and phenolic ripeness. You know, I just work on like a thing called psychological ripeness. You know, we pick when the vineyards look nice and the flavors are there, and you know, and like that. We don't do much, I don't know, analysis kind of things of those parameters. We look at the sugars and the acidities and stuff, and pick, you know.
I guess the beauty as well is you've been working with these vines for so long now that you know them so well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does help. I mean, it's not necessary to, you know, it's not necessary to know a vineyard very well to make nice wine, I don't think, you know. Look, I mean, all my neighbors are far better winemakers than we are. You know, they make wines that are like really well made and really perfect and stuff. Our wines are like more like farmers' wines, you know. Hanneke and I have got the same kind of approach, except now that Hanneke's here, the blends on the back labels are a bit more accurate, you know. when it was up to me, like, we just like made it up, you know. I never kept record of like what went into the wines, you know. But now Hanneke is amazing, so she'll like, okay, Adi, listen, we added there, it was like 500 kilograms. So amazing, you know. I don't keep any record of like stuff. We just like I just know what tanks the stuff is in. But so now the back label is a little bit more accurate. It's got a percentage on. But the wine, but the spirit behind the wine is the same. It's just it's a farmer's wine, you know.
Yeah.
It's not a fancy. None of the wines are fancy pants kind of things.
They're just really wonderful expressions of place. And I mean, like, we're tasting the ryegrass here, and it's, you know, it's in one very specific vineyard, one very specific rice.
But that is the amazing thing about grapes. You know, they can do that. You know, the glass can give you, you know, it's like a lesson in geography sometimes, and a place, you know. If it's made sensibly, and the grapes are of a decent quality, you know. and you don't, I don't know, push the grapes too much in the winery. I mean,
They can tell you where they're from.
yeah, they can.
Yeah.
And especially a grape like Grenache.
Yeah.
Grenache listens. It's like a grape that listens really well. You get some children that don't listen. Remember when you were small, you stand in a line in like preschool, even before you go to big school, like you stand in a line and the teacher like whispers something into the first kid's ear, and then he turns around and tells it to the next kid and the next kid and the next kid. And then they check right at the end of the line how clearly the message got through. You know, it's always a cock up. There's always like somebody that doesn't listen. But like Grenache is a grape that listens really well to where it is. It's weird. It's just, you know, on these granites here, Grenache is just amazing like that.
So Rob's just saying he's got to run, but thank you very much, Adi. I guess now is a good point as well to ask if anyone has any more questions. Thank you so much, Adi. This has been such an amazing chat.
No worries, Dylan. Yeah, anytime. You know, if anybody want, like, you can ask me like on WhatsApp or on Instagram. Any questions, like anything you need to know. I mean, well, if I don't know, I can definitely put you in contact with people that will know.
Someone knows what the grape varieties on the back label we're going to say.
Yeah, or how, you know, I don't know, or any other details about South Africa or the Swartland, or, you know. But thanks everybody for listening, and Ellen, thanks for putting it together. And yeah, man, I hope to meet you in person one day.
Yeah.
Either in the United Kingdom, or if you guys come over to South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be wonderful to have everyone at the wine club be able to meet you in person one day. We'll make it happen as soon as the world sort of lets travel happen again and you're back in the UK. I'm sure we'll try and do something. But I honestly thank you so much, and thank you everyone that joined us. I know that now everyone's got sort of a lot on their plate and they've, you know, got plans and things, and it's just really wonderful to have you here. And Adi, you've battled through a blackout to be able to chat to us, and that is very much appreciated as it is.
It's a huge pleasure, and yeah, have a great evening further, everybody, and yeah, a wonderful weekend coming up. I don't know what you guys have got planned. I'm going to an auction tomorrow morning, up country, and with my uncle. He's 84 years old. He loves an auction, and you know, he's getting on. So I thought, you know, it'd be such an amazing thing to spend the night with him and go to a couple of auctions, like farm auctions. He likes a shitty farm auction, like where there's a lot of crap. Like, he loves that.
Like my dad.
So I'm going to the auction with him tomorrow, and on a Friday I'm spending 2 nights with the old guy, and yeah, the rest of the weekend I'm just going to relax, and I hope you guys get a chance to relax as well and enjoy the last couple of days before the weekend.
Well, your weekend sounds amazing, and I'm sure we'll all try and take a leaf out of your book and have a relaxing time.
I'll let you know if I bought anything interesting.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and again, thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much. Brilliant.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I've recorded this session as well, so I'll pop it on YouTube, and if you want to revisit it at all, you're more than welcome to. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Adi. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Lovely weekend. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.